Hello BookTube, Sarah here, and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm coming to you with the Netflix book tag. Say that 3 times fast. Yeah, I have not, as far as I know, actually been tagged in this, but I've been seeing it go around quite a bit, and I thought it would be a lot of fun to do. So, here we go. Question number 1. Recently watched the last book that you finished reading. I literally just finished this morning as I am recording this, and that is The Girls of Mischief Bay by Susan Mallery. Guys, I love this book. I gave it 4 stars. It was absolutely fabulous. It is not, I very much hesitate to call it a chick lit book because it's not. Chick lit, I do find, tends to have like a humorous kind of quality to it. There were a lot of very serious issues that were brought up in this book. The death of a spouse, suicide, divorce. But that being said, it was a lovely, lovely story. Like I said, hard-hitting topics, but it was very, very well done, and I highly recommend it. Question number 2. Top pick. A book or books that have been recommended to you based on what you previously read. I don't know about you guys, but occasionally I do look at, on Goodreads, they have the, because you read this, you might like this. And this is the book that came up, and I actually looked at it, and I went on Amazon, and I put it on my wish list on Amazon. I have a Kindle wish list. Now, I know a lot of people on Goodreads use their TBR as, like, books that they want to read but don't necessarily own. I only put books on my TBR that I actually own. So my wish list on Amazon goes the books that I want to read but don't own yet. So, does that make sense? And that book, now that I've yammered on, is Palisades Park by Brennert. I've heard this author is quite good. I've never actually read any of his work. This is another historical fiction novel, and this was recommended to me because of the fact that I just finished reading The All-Girl Filling Station Last Reunion by Fanny Flagg. And this one takes place in, like, New Jersey in the summertime, the boardwalk, and it goes from the 1930s to the 1970s, following a family, highlights, of course, parts of World War II, and, the end of the Depression and stuff like that, and it just sounded really good. So immediately it went on my wish list on Amazon, and I might just go ahead and pick it up anyway. A lot of times what I do with that wish list is I check it every now and then to see if anything's dropped in price. But this one just sounds so good, I might just pick it up at full price. Or I might even see maybe my library, I don't know if it's available on audio, but I might check that out because I think that might be a really good way to read it as well. The next question is, recently added, the last book that you bought. And the last book that I bought was just yesterday. This came in I think it was a Kindle Daily deal, or it might have been on it was on BookBub. And I'm a big fan of this author. She's a New York Times or a USA Today bestselling author, and that's Deborah Webb, and the book is called No Darker Place. And this is the first book in a series. It's on for 99 cents. As I'm recording this on Sunday, you guys will probably see this. I think this will go up on Monday. It's still available. So this is essentially a thriller, a romantic suspense thriller, and that's what Deborah Webb does best. And for 99 cents, the price was right, so I immediately snagged it. So yes, that is the last book that I purchased. Popular on Netflix, books that everyone knows about. 2 that you've read, and 2 that you have read or have no interest in reading. I don't understand that second part. But what I'm doing is 2 that I've read and enjoyed, and then 2 that everybody else has read that I have no interest in reading. So, the ones that I have read and, of course, loved, I actually have the physical copies of. And the first one is Gone with the Wind by Margaret Mitchell. That one kind of goes without saying. This is a great book. I have never actually physically read this copy. I found it, like, for 50 cents at a rummage bin or something like that. And I picked it up because I didn't actually own a copy of the book. This has been well loved, and I think it's had a little bit of water damage. My goal is eventually to get a copy of this on hardcover. Again, I don't think I'd actually physically read the book again. I've read the book 5 times. 5 times I've read this over the course of 20 years. And, because I think I read it the first time at age 18, and I'm now 38. So, and then last year I listened to it the first time on audio, and audio was the way to go now. It was just so much easier to read, and the narration was fantastic. So, but love this book. I'm sure that everybody's heard about it. The other book, I picked one off my shelf. I want to pick stuff that I had on my shelf, and the other one is actually Agatha Christie's And Then There Were None. This I also listened to on audio, even though I own a physical copy. Again, the narration of this was fabulous. I'm sure you're all familiar with this story. Essentially, it's about a group of people who don't know each other, who all end up at this very mysterious castle on an island, and they all start dying, or getting pegged off, or whatever. And I read this book in high school, or just after high school. It wasn't for high school, I don't think. It might have been just after. And I enjoyed it. And then when I re-listened to it on audio last year or the year before, I had totally forgotten who done it. And it was like a treat again to listen to it, to realize I love this book. Absolutely loved it. Could not recommend either of those books enough. For the two that I have absolutely no interest in reading. The first one, Twilight. Everybody and his brother knows Twilight. I think, and you know what? To be fair, if it got you reading, that's awesome. I'm not mocking you. If you like either of these books, please don't think I'm mocking you or I think that you're a horrible reader or anything like that. These are just not my taste. I'm not into sparkly vampires. My stepdaughter read these. She loved them. My husband actually read these because he wanted to make sure that they were appropriate for his daughter. You know, she was a little bit older. I think she was 15 or 16 when she read them. But yeah, so yeah, not for me. I tried. I really, really tried. But I really couldn't get much more than 3 or 4 chapters into the first book. Sorry. The other book, again, not mocking, because I've read the first one. And the first one was 50 Shades of Grey, and I read it. But I will not be reading 50 Shades Darker, which is the second book. The first book, I went back and forth on whether I liked or disliked the first book when I read it. Parts that I liked, parts that I didn't like. I think it was really sensationalized. I personally don't feel it was that well written. I've read a lot of books, erotica novels that are far better written than 50 Shades of Grey was. I don't know why it got the hype that it got, to be fair. If you're looking for erotic novels and you like that kind of thing, a suggestion would be Megan Hart. Last name is H-A-R-T. She does some fabulous, fabulous books. Again, it's not a genre I read a lot of. Not because I don't like it, but just because it's not, I'm not around it all the time. Like, I don't see a lot of it, you know, in my day-to-day book looking at. But 50 Shades Darker, which is the second book. The first book, at the very end, without giving anything away, but I'm pretty sure everybody knows about it or has seen the movie or has heard about it, is at the very end of the first book, she leaves him. She's had enough. She finally got her backbone and she left. And I was so happy. I'm like, this is awesome. The story wasn't that greatly written, blah, 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 but the ending was like, yes. And then at the very end, she goes back to him. And I took the book and threw it across the room and vowed to never continue with the series. Now, everybody who has read this has told me, you must continue. He redeems himself. He redeems himself. I don't care. I don't care about the series anymore. I'm sorry. I read that first book like 5 or 6 years ago. I am not going back to this series. I've got absolutely zero interest in it. Again, if you liked it, kudos. And I'm sure you'll probably say the same thing to me in the comments. Continue on, he redeems himself, but to be honest, guys, I'm just not interested. Question number 5. Comedies. A funny book. So the book that I picked for this one is a book that I read a number of years ago, and I know I've heard, I think it was Christine from Kizzy Reads. She read this a couple of months ago, and for one of the Triple RC challenges, and it's Confessions of a Shopaholic by Sophie Kinsella. And she didn't care for it. She didn't like the girl's attitude, which I fully get. I remember the story very well. I read this book 11 years ago. I read it, I distinctly remember reading it because I was reading it waiting for the plane to go on the cruise, and it was the day after my 26th birthday. It's 12 years ago now. Holy cow. So anyway, again, 26-year-old me may have found her antics a lot different than 38-year-old me. Do you know what I mean? I still found it really humorous back then. I don't know if I still would, but it is considered to be a humorous romantic comedy. So if that's what you're into, if you haven't read it, check it out. But Sophie Kinsella does a lot of books like that, so if this one might not be your personal taste, you can try something else by her. The other one that I really liked by her was Remember Me. And I've heard a lot of people also said that Can You Keep a Secret was really good as well. Next question, dramas. A character who is a drama king or queen. And the book I picked, or the character I picked for that one is Violet from The Valley of Amazement by Amy Tan, which I finished earlier this year on audio. This was a fabulous, fabulously epic, wonderful story. But Violet as a main character, as a child, oh my lord, what a drama queen. Now, granted, as she got older and the stuff hit the fan, essentially, for her, and she went down that path that wasn't so great, that wasn't any fault of her own, she had every right to complain. But at the beginning, she really didn't. And yeah, when I thought of this, just because I think I've read it so recently, she's the first character that popped to mind was Violet. The next question, question number 7. Animated, a book with cartoons on the cover. I picked a graphic novel that I have, and that is The Babysitter's Club by Anna Martin. Book number 1, Christie's Great Idea. So written by Anna Martin, and the illustrations were done by Rania Telemeager. Am I saying that correctly? I hope so. But I love this. I bought this when it first came out because I just thought, oh my gosh. And the one I have is the original in black and white. They've now reissued it in color, but I kind of like the black and white. The drawings are just adorable. They are so stinking adorable. I can't deal. Like, how cute are these? And I mean, you know, even the Babysitter's Club notebook pages that they had to do, like, I absolutely love this. As you guys can see, I am a huge fan of the Babysitter's Club, and, you know, I knew that when I saw these, I was going to have to own them. So they are, and I've complained about this before, they issued book 1, book 3, book 4, which is, book 1 is Christie's Great Idea, book 3 is The Truth About Stacy, book 4 is Marianne Saves the Day, and then they jumped ahead to book 7, and that is Claudia and Mean Janine. And now they're releasing in September book 5. They're jumping back to book 5, which is Dawn and the Impossible 3. Like, I don't know why they didn't do a graphic novel of book number 2. It annoys me to no end. Claudia and the Phantom Phone Calls would have made an amazing graphic novel, in my opinion. But they didn't do that. Why didn't they do that? Oh, yeah. But also, the other thing is, too, for the 5th book that's coming out, is it's not the same illustrator. I've seen the cover illustrations, of course, for the new one, and it looks adorable, but I'm just so used to these. I mean, these are just, it's so age appropriate. Like, you know, like, if I can show you guys the back, like, those are 12-year-old girls, you know, like, it's completely age appropriate, and I just love it. And I'm so, totally hit myself in the face. I am so glad they re-released these for a new generation, because these are fabulous. And if I had all the money in the world and could hire somebody, I would want all of these done in graphic novel format, the entire series, but unfortunately, that's not going to happen, but still, it's still nice. I wish, if anything at all, I wish they would go back and redo do book number 2 in graphic novel. Please. If anyone at Scholastic is listening to me, which I highly doubt, please go back and do Claudia and the Phantom Phone Calls. So yes, that's for animated. Watch It Again, a book or book series that you want to reread. I've already mentioned this book briefly, and that is the All-Girl Fill-In Station's Last Reunion by Fanny Flagg. I just finished listening to this on audio earlier this week, and I actually read it for the first time in physical book format 2 years ago. And like I said, I re-listened to it again, or reread it essentially, last week. I was talking to my mom yesterday when we were out and about, because she read this book, her sister read this book, a lot of people I know read this book. If you're unfamiliar with who Fanny Flagg is, because I didn't know at first either, she is the author of Fried Green Tomatoes, or Fried Green Tomatoes at the Whistle Stop Cafe, I believe is the actual book title. But Fried Green Tomatoes, the movie, and she's the author. She's also an actress. I don't recall seeing her in, I don't know what she's been in, I could look it up. But she narrates this, she does a fabulous job, and I said to my mom yesterday, I'm like, this is a book I could absolutely see myself picking up again every couple years and re-listening to. I know the story, but it is so wonderful. It is set in modern day, and it goes back to World War II. And it's about the female pilots in World War II. And, you know, like, that's one of the arcs of the story. The main premise of the story is the main character from, like, modern day finds out she's adopted. And this family of women pilots, like, they're all sisters. One of them is her mother. Like, I don't want to get too much more into than that, but it is fabulous. Please, please, please do yourself a favor and read this book. It is fantastic. So the next question is Documentaries, a nonfiction book that you'd recommend to everyone. Excuse me. And that book is Furiously Happy, a funny book about horrible things by Jenny Lawson. I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with this book. It was talked about a couple years ago, quite a bit on BookTube. I read it 2 years ago, December, and I flew through it, and it was unbelievable. It's not her first book, which was called Let's Pretend This Never Happened, I think was more of a memoir. This one was kind of sort of a memoir, but it was more like her day-to-day life, and it's like a series of essays. And some of them had me laughing so hard. Like, I was at work reading this on lunch, and my manager would just, like, poke her head over my cubicle and, like, look at me funny. Like, what are you reading? But then other parts of it were so heartbreakingly sad. With what she's dealing with her mental illness and what have you. This is a fantastic, fantastic book. I love Jenny Lawson. I now follow her on Instagram and all stuff, and I read her blog, and I wasn't sure who she was before I heard about this book, but now I do, and I'm a big fan. So I absolutely recommend this book if you like memoirs and stuff like that. And then question number 10. Sorry. Action and Adventure, an action-packed book. Now, this should tell you something. This is the first book that came to mind, and this is a book that came out in 2009, and I read it when it came out in 2009 and have not reread it since. And it is a book called 6 Seconds, and it's by Rick Mofina. I think that's how you pronounce his last name, so there's the cover. At the time when this came out, I was kind of branching out of romance and wanted to try other things, and this is the first thriller book that I picked up. I think it was actually the Da Vinci Code was first, and then I decided to try this. Now, this is a espionage type thriller, if you're into that kind of thing. And the chapters, from what I remember, again, we're going back to 2009, I think they're shorter, and it follows 3 or 4 groups of people, or like 3 or 4 different types of people. And all these people, you don't think these stories are interconnected. They're like 4 separate things that are going on in 4 different parts of the world. But as the story progresses, they all end up coming together literally to an event that, if this event takes place, will have lasting repercussions on the rest of the world. You know, I don't want to get into too much what it is, but absolutely fantastic. I finished this book and I couldn't believe how much I loved it, because this was not my thing. I was reading V.C. Andrews. I was reading, you know, Anne Rice. And then I got into contemporary romance. Then I read the Da Vinci Code and I really enjoyed it, but then I jumped into this. And I still loved it. It was so well told. It was such a good story. When I was done, I handed it to my dad, and I'm like, you've got to read this. My father read it, my brother read it, my grandfather read it. They all loved it. This is an older book, so I don't know whether you can find it. Oops, dropped my tablet. I don't know whether you probably might be able to find it at used bookstores, might be able to order a copy on Amazon. You can probably get it for the Kindle. I do want to reread it. Now that I've talked about it, I've thrown it back on my wish list on Amazon to hopefully pick up in the near future so I can read it, because it was fantastic. Question number 11. New releases. A book that just came out or will be coming out soon that you can't wait to read. Well, you guys know, I can't go through any sort of anything on this channel without mentioning Heather Graham. Coming July 25th is Dark Rites, the next book in the Crew of Hunters series. I will not be getting to this book until probably this time next year, the way that I'm working through the series, like 1 book a month. And I think this is going to be book number 22 or 23, and I think I'm on book 8. So, do the math. But I am so looking forward to this. It's on pre-order, of course. All of her books are on pre-order for me automatically. But yes, this is one I'm definitely looking forward to. And the final question in this tag is, tag some people. I'm not going to bother doing that because, like I said, it looks like everybody's already done this. If you haven't done it and you want to do it, consider yourself tagged. I'll leave a link in the description box below to the original tag. Oh, which I meant to add. My apologies. The original tag was done by a darker shade of Whitney, and I will post a link to that video in the down bar below, along with a list of all the questions. And as usual, I'm also going to post links to every single book that I talked about in this video, so you can go to Goodreads and check them out for yourself. Also below, you can find where to find me on social media, so please do follow me. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't yet, please subscribe. And I will see you guys in my next video. Take care and happy reading, everybody. Bye.